Okay. Uh-oh. Nothing hurts more than having to make a video analyzing why a show that I loved failed miserably at being good. Let's cut to the chase. I don't think we're getting a season 3. I don't think it's happening for us, and it hurts. Because season 3 was gonna be finally when we get some Six of Crows material. I think the production's main flaw is that they cared about the source material maybe to a fault. They didn't take as many creative liberties as it was necessary, and the ones that they did take were misguided. Ultimately, I suppose it wasn't ideal how they had to merge two separate book series in order to create the show. So let's address the source material. We have the Shadow and Bone trilogy, which had as a target audience 12-year-old girls, and it was extremely unoriginal. And then we have the Six of Crows duology, which was published much later on with target audience teenagers and young adults. The latter of which is the superior source material, and I really genuinely don't understand why anyone bought the rights for Shadow and Bone instead of just purchasing the rights for Six of Crows and just doing a show exclusively for that. That's the one that was more successful. Why did we even entertain the idea of having a Shadow and Bone show? The books were bad. In my personal opinion, Six of Crows was this successful because it was really focused on character building and character development. Every single emotional bit that would happen in the story would be followed by like a dramatic flashback of something that happened 10 years ago that scarred the characters so deeply that this is why they are reacting to their trauma so aggressively. So it's genuinely like a traumatic reaction to something that reminds them of their childhood, and that makes you empathize with them and care deeply about their happiness and success, and you want them more than anything to just have a good life. My experience with reading the Six of Crows duology was that by the time I was about to finish Crooked Kingdom, I was crying. And not because it was particularly sad, which it was, or not really because it was over, which it was, but it was because of the fear and the realization that maybe finding another story and another group of characters that I would care this much about would be highly unlikely. The Six of Crows duology is extremely plot heavy, but aggressively character driven. That's what the showrunners failed to realize. Because as brilliantly woven and action-packed the books were, it was through flowery and emotional writing. Like every action moment that was happening was described in the most dramatic and like emotional way possible. Like if it was a movie, it would be like slow motion close-up of the character realizing what's happening. Like it would be full of slow motions. The actual action itself would not take that much of the time. I guess what I'm trying to get to is that the way the show handled action was extremely shallow. It was like halting the plot instead of propelling it forward. You could take away most action scenes and effectively nothing would be altered from like your understanding of the stakes or the plot. And although bad action scenes on their own are not a crime, they eat away resources and most offensively, screen time. Even looking at it through like a singular character basis, one less action scene per character would give us one more moment to bond with them and care for their inner conflicts and desires. And for their motivations. Characters need motivations. It's a script. What made season 1 so successful, in my opinion, both as an audience member and as a writer, was the whole ordeal with the Darkling. Having a teen girl for like an Anakin, Ben Solo, Loki kind of archetype is extremely exciting. It had never been done like that, like so unapologetically, and despite Ben's weak performance, people bought it. Like, redemption arcs, in my opinion, have a chokehold in our generation just because of our need to, like, rationalize the trauma that we have collected from our caregivers. Like, giving them excuses and, like, loving them in hopes they change. It's a toxic, sad, and heartbreaking and self-destructing addiction. Taking a hot, dad-aged bad boy character and deleting any reason or attempt of redeeming him makes the plot effectively devoid of all inner conflict. The Darkling is no longer sad or charming or in need of love. He's a villain, and villains need to die. Like, the plot is already resolved. No twists or turns. No reasons for us to question Alina's motives or morality. Every conflict she faced this season was related to her love for Mal, which gets us to the biggest misuse of source material I've ever come across, and the source being season 1. Because forget the books. Like, don't even use the books as a reference, the books were horrible. A good show needs an emotional anchor. This show tends to generally lack focus. There is dozens of side characters, each of which has their own little love story happening in the background. But one thing they did well is heavily rely on Mal and Alina's love story as like the gravitational force of the show. It all started and ended with them. And although there is like dozens of other love stories to choose from and couples to ship, Mal and Alina carried the main emotional weight. They're the ones that get to narrate the plot, they're the ones that read out loud their love letters, they are the ones that you're meant to love and care for. They're the ones that are on the poster. And having a love triangle between Alina, her hot best friend who loves her unconditionally, and this dark and tortured dad-aged Darkling was what made it so exciting, because both options seem interesting. They do! On the one hand, you want her to be with her longtime best friend who seems to be so loyal to her and who is going above and beyond to win her back. And on the other hand, you're like, what if she fixes him and they both save the world together? What if her love redeems him? Like, come on. That's the whole point of the show. To have an entire season building the tension of this will they, won't they between Mal and Alina and the Darkling, only to have it be resolved in the first episode of the second season, that was devastating to watch. What was the rush? What was the point? Why not have this be the focus of the entire season storyline? Such wasted potential. Imagine every conflict that Alina had throughout this season and make her and Mal be friends through it instead of lovers. Imagine them both loving each other but having to remain friends because they know that like their love for each other is not something that they have space to explore right now because the world is literally ending. So they both have to pretend they don't have feelings for each other apart from platonic love forever and ever. And like having to navigate every single conflict of her having to marry this prince, of her and Darkling still being like having visions through light force or whatever, taking away this tension and this element of the plot that was the only reason you were watching season 1. It just drains the gravity out of every scene. If you take away the heart of a show and you don't replace it with anything, you get the bare bones of a show. A heart can beat without a body, but a body cannot live without a heart. It was refreshing to see how much the production and the people involved in making this adaptation cared about the end result in comparison to trash TV shows like Wednesday or Des Jones. But caring about the source material or the product itself doesn't mean that you will make wise decisions. Like, it's okay for a show like Shadow and Bone to be mediocre. Like, it is expected that the people involved in it were just looking for a job and not to win Emmys. But this season was borderline bad, and it really hurt to watch. Moments between Kaz and Inej, which were literally milestones in the books, were given like this slow motion, intense focus. But to the people who haven't read the book, it feels like you just skipped 500 pages of emotional turmoil and then just the plot of the show hold for a slow motion touch enhancing, which doesn't feel earned at that point of the show because we haven't built enough to get to here. It feels unearned and like out of nowhere and kind of jarring to watch. Another thing that deserves praise, apart from the fact that they really tried and they really cared, was the casting itself. They truly went above and beyond to find the most suitable actors for the roles, specifically for like the way they looked in the books. They really tried to find like people who perfectly fit the description of the books. I've never come across a better cast book to movie adaptation. Like, some of the actors were even able to capture the essence of the character. Like, my favorite being like the Crows and my least being Barnes. So where do we go from here? In my opinion, we can only hope for just one more final third season, and that was the original intent of the producers to begin with. They just wanted to make a 3-season show. And hopefully the Darkling will remain resting in peace throughout the entire season. And the main focus of the entire final season will be the crows. We have reached the status quo of like where Six of Crows, the book 1, began, and I feel like they have already used so many elements of like Crooked Kingdom that it's finally time to address the plot of Six of Crows. Mal and Alina should have screen time equivalent to what Matthias and Nina had in season 1, which means like about the total of like 7 to 8 minutes. Like just resolve their romance and just show them live happily ever after wherever they're gonna go. And anything with like the prince and stuff, just put it in the background. Put it just in between commercials, okay? Just for 2 minutes and that's it. We don't care. It's too many characters. Too many characters. Just try to adapt the plot of Six of Crows as closely as humanly possible. Let my boy Matthias out of prison. Focus a bit more on Wyland because you've really watered down his entire plot line. And you've made his love story, which is the only gay main love story, and you've already watered it down so much. Why? Why did you do that? In general, try to do as strong of a heist plot as like a Spanish telenovela. Make it suspenseful, establish the stakes, show the characters' weaknesses and how they overcome them through love. And just before the final episode, give him like a high point of like fresh air, we're finally making it, blah blah blah. And then just do the end of Crooked Kingdom. Have the one character that's meant to die with pride and dignity. Like, have this character for the entire season try to get to like their destination, and when they're one step away from all their dreams, that's when you goodbye, sayonara to them, okay? Just like the books. Make this character one of the main emotional focuses of the story, just as they're trying to like navigate their own trauma and their own life dreams and aspirations and what they want to achieve in life. Get them one step away from all their dreams coming true, and then just make them cease to exist. Make it sad and tragic. Try to really drill into our heads the no mourners, no funerals kind of thing, because you have kind of like sprinkled it in a way that's not impactful. And about the ending, just show us every character and like where they end up kind of vibe, but like leave Inej and Kaz open-ended, and then have a post-credit scene of like the ship coming and like Kaz fixing up his little tuxedo because he's never to me his like parents-in-law. Anyway, so now that I've helped you fix your entire show, that'll be cash or card. Give me money. Season 2 was boring. It's so weird to watch a teen show for girls, and then there is so many violent action scenes. Like, who is this for? Who do you think your audience is, and what do you think they want out of you? It was a bad season, guys. Boring and bad. Like, imagine being bored of a teen show. Where is the drama? Bring me the drama. Like, there was no suspense. There was nothing romantically exciting happening for the entire show. You even tried to introduce a second love triangle, and you didn't even build upon it. Like, it was so anticlimactic. It was so disappointing. So many side characters, and every single one has a love story. For the love of God, like, for real. And then you try to make Darkling ugly, and then you fail. Like, what is this makeup that you chose to do of him having like a couple of scratches? Why is he Ben Solo? Like, at least Ben Solo cried a lot, you know? Like, he had redeeming qualities and those juicy lips, and he was portrayed by Adam Driver. Like, Ben Barnes, you know who you cast. He cannot do much. Like, I knew from the first episode, the moment you had them kiss and like make out in the bed on the first episode, I knew this was gonna be a bad season. Like, you've spent an entire season of them sending love letters to each other, which neither of them have read, which means they don't know how each other truly feels, and that you make them kiss on the first episode. Where is the build-up? The audience would have been fine if nobody smooched in this season. You don't need smoochies. Leave it for the last episodes. We didn't need to see them smooch. Okay? We didn't. Like, just hire me instead, you know? Like, hire me. I'll help you. I'll tell you how it is. I'll not shy away from, like, criticizing you to help you get better.